Want to make a motion to accept those minutes? Rob Wirch has the motion.
Rob Mann, I'll second.
Rob Mann has a second. Any changes to those minutes? Any changes to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the April 14 minutes as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? This carries 6-0. So move on to correspondence. We actually got quite a bit of correspondence today. There is an item of correspondence that came in on Monday, April 18th from Daniel Carlson. Then I'll see if I can pull this up on my phone. Let's see, we received this afternoon. We received correspondence. All right, from Tama Senosk. We also received correspondence from Beverly Warner. We received correspondence from Sean Senosk. We received correspondence from Daryl Hamilton. And we received correspondence from Heather Santos. And then we sort of indirectly received correspondence from Janice Smith via the first selectman. I think that's everyone. That's the Heather Santos one. Anything else?
One more from schools.
Yes. I mean, yeah, but left over from March 29. That's true. True. It's easy enough to put it in here. Yeah, this is from March 29. Oh, no worries. All right, so I think that covers correspondence, right? Anybody's aware? We'll move on to citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments from anyone here in the room? For the record, you can state your name and address, please.
Tom Angelo, 640 Fabian Road, Board of Education, President of the Turtle Lot Trust, Building Committee member, and Alumni Association. I think that's it. I said before when I get up here that I know we're all in a very tough situation as a town financially. As board members, we've been elected to obviously come up with our fiscal budgets and make sure that they're in sound mind and created correctly. All that being said, I hope that the Board of Finance, even though the $500,000 increase over last year's budget is a very nice gesture, and thank you very much. Any reduction, you have to add on an additional 300, and I think it's 34,000 for, I mentioned once that we're getting a student in, which requires 24-hour care, which is basically at the expense of us as a town. So if the proposed $250,000 decrease goes through, technically that should equal about a $600,000 decrease when you add in that additional cost, which was not in the budget that's before you. So technically the ask should have been for $1 million, not $750,000. So again, I just want to raise that question, or raise that to you, that the 250,000 cut would actually be closer to 600 when you add in the special education student that's coming on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from anyone here in the room? If you could share your name and address, please.
Bill Warner, Lowell Davis Road. Mr. Chairman, over the past few months, I've listened to the Board of Selectmen budget hearings on Zoom. And I've sat in on the Board of Finance budget workshops and listened to various claims about our budget and how we are shortchanging our students. This concerned me very much as I grew up in the projects in a big city, and I know how valuable a good education is. I also know that our fellow citizens care very much about their children, so something didn't add up, and I decided to do a little research. I was surprised by what I found. In the Connecticut State Department of Education, Bureau of Fiscal Services 2020 to 2021 report published in January of 2022, Thompson expended more per student than the other 8 towns along 395 in northeastern Connecticut. Those towns were Woodstock, Putnam, Pomfret, Killenly, Plainfield, Brooklyn, Sterling, and Canterbury. Of those towns that we spend more per student than, 2 of them are listed in the top 100 high schools in Connecticut, Woodstock and Canterbury. For the amount we are spending, I would expect Thompson to be on that list. We also spend more on the average than all the other states in New England. Now, these numbers were based on a total of 989 students. At the Board of Finance January meeting, the superintendent stated there were 930 students in our school system, a drop of 59 students or 6% of our student population. That means even if we keep the school budget the same, we are increasing our expenditures per student by 6%. The Board of Education is asking for an additional 3.94%. With the 6% due to a drop in students, they're looking for a total of 9.94%. That request, I believe, is excessive. I would like to also address the issue of a town administrator. We had an election less than 6 months ago. No one running for the Board of Selectmen ran stating they were for a town administrator. This only came up after every other department went over their budget with the Board of Selectmen. Is that what the citizens of Thompson want? We don't know because nobody asked them. And nobody who ran for office on the Board of Selectmen proposed that before the election. Also, if we have a town administrator running the town and reporting to the Board of Selectmen, the first selectman's salary should drop to $10,000, not drop by $10,000, but actually drop to $10,000, because then it becomes a part-time job like the other 2 selectmen, and we shouldn't be paying a figurehead $50,000. This year, the grand list rose $32 million. That means the town will take in an additional $853,000 if the tax rate is kept the same. This is almost the same increase as last year, $865,000. And we increased our spending last year by 2.5 times more than the average of the previous 3 years. I believe there's enough growth in the budget with the additional of $300,000 that we should keep the mill rate flat at $24.95. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Name and address, please.
Bill Witkowski, 12 Clarence Drive. First off, I'd like to thank the Board of Finance for all the hours that you put in. But there's other boards that put in as many, if not more hours. The Board of Selectmen put together a good budget to make the town better. The Board of Education puts in hundreds of hours to make the town a little better. And everything ends and dies right here with this board. They put in an administrator, and that was the last 3 first selectmen were in favor of that. So it's nothing new. It's been around for a long time. And I know it's going to die because Mr. Johnson already sent around a list, which is probably an illegal meeting, but I won't even go there. It dies. Even when people come here in support of the dog pound, you find a need to cut stuff. That's not being responsible. That's just the opposite. That's being irresponsible. The Board of Education, we have a 26% special education rate. That's not, you didn't mention that in your report. That costs money. We're in Alliance District. Do any of you know what that means? You do? And it's costing us thousands upon thousands of dollars to make it, to bring us up to being a school that hitting achievement. Hundreds of hours we put in. Not one of you, except for Mr. Herbert, did I see at any of these meetings, any of them. This is the biggest spend in town, the biggest spend you have, 18, $19 million, and you don't even come to a budget workshop? That's your money. And you just feel, let's cut it $250,000. That is so irresponsible. So irresponsible. This town could be better if you listen to the boards and commissions that are proposing this to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from people here in the room? Any other citizens' comments? Oh, go ahead. Name and address, please.
Sorry, I'm short. Jessica Bolte, 1081 Riverside Drive. Clear for transparency, Board of Ed member. I'm also on both PTOs for both at the elementary school and the middle school. I'm your local Girl Scout troop leader, so I deal with a lot of students out of your school district. I'm also attempting to rebuild your Cub Scout program. In regards to what we spend on general ed, if you were to budget out our number of students based on what we spend, based on whether they're general ed or special ed, our general education, we spend $16,800 per student, which is below state average. We average approximately 19 grand per special ed student, and with the new one onboarding, that number will skyrocket. We have spent years where we have not budgeted for more than what we have for special ed students, and every year for the last 5 to 6 years, we gain an additional 2 to 4 students every year in special ed. And what does that harm? That harms our general ed students. That harms my kids, that harms your kids, that harms your grandchildren. And the fact that we don't look at those numbers and understand that when we cut, we're harming our children just to get to a specific mill rate. I've been on you guys, for some of you, for the last couple of years, that we can't just cut. And I think that's something that we need to address. We're harming what our school does. And I know that's going to bring up the topic of outsourcing. That was brought up 3 years ago, and it was more expensive to outsource than it was to keep our current school district going. That included the cost to transport, that included the cost for special ed, not to mention the amount of additional time our children would be spending on buses. They spend enough time on buses already. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would not touch the education budget. I understand that may not occur, but it's something that I'm asking for. I would also like to address the Board of Finance that if you are going to be making cuts, that you articulate the reason why. You are an elected official. I think you owe that transparency to your residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from people here in the room? You could just state your name and address, please.
Fred Smith, excuse me, 78 Lettman Road. I want to talk about the animal control officer position. First, I want to touch on the procedure. So I couldn't make it to the last meeting. I saw it on Zoom, and I see that it seems to run two different. In some cases, some of you say we need to look at every line item, and then you talk about a different department, and we shouldn't even look at the line items. To me, there's some bias going on there. I don't particularly like that. If you're going to look at line items, department, if you're not going to, don't do it for any. I think that's, more fair. Also, was mentioned, not on the last meeting, but the meeting before, about the job description for the animal control. It is absolutely wrong. There are state mandated requirements for an animal control officer. There's special training they have to do. There's a lot more to it than what the job position says. And just because the job description is wrong, doesn't mean the officer doesn't have to fulfill the requirements. It's like a police officer, if it says, you take care of this or that, and something else criminal happens, you take care of it. That's how it works, right? Also, in doing some more investigation, the median pay for this job throughout Connecticut is, depending where you look, between 50 and about 62. Asking for 44 originally, and you cut it by 8. I don't think that's very fair at all. Other positions, you wanted to bump them up because they're not fair and equitable across, the market. And then finally, I would just suggest that someone make a motion actually to increase it above the original request to where it should be. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from people here in the room? You can state your name and address, please.
Sean Brissett, Old Davis Road. So last Tuesday night, I spoke about my opinion of targeting a mill rate. And I specifically talked about one of our new members, and it was realistically, by the end of the night, I realized it was both of our new members. Then somebody decided to butt in and explain how I was being disrespectful. And I want to address that because I was raised in this town when we respected our authority. And no greater authority than police officers and school officials. These two gentlemen will always be Mr. Johnson and Mr. Gillott. They will never be Dave and Larry. I respect both of them tremendously. Mr. Gillott was like another father to me. One of his sons was in my wedding. So to insinuate that I was being disrespectful is just flat out wrong. I disagree with their method. I've disagreed with targeting a mill rate for a dozen years now. I think that shows a lack of respect to the people who put the budget together. I believe you look at the numbers and you put together a spending plan that meets the needs of the town. That's my opinion. I'm not going to change that opinion because two people that I respect are doing it differently. I'm just going to disagree with them. And we're capable of doing that, although some people in town have a petition to remove an entire board they disagree with because they're not capable of respecting people and disagreeing with them at the same time. I hope that tonight you put it to the voters. At the end of the day, that's your job, is to put together what you think is a fair spending plan and put that in front of the voters. And if they turn it down, then you rework it. That's the way it's supposed to be. And that's the way we act as adults. We respect each other, we discuss, we debate, we disagree, we move on. And that's what I'm asking for you to do tonight. I think if somebody wants to be part of a silent majority, they should stay silent.
Thank you. Any other comments from citizens here in the room? You can state your name and address, please.
Gary Kettle, 18 Wilsonville Road. So I just found out about the meeting. I haven't had a chance to attend the meeting, so I just have a question. My main concern is the town administrator that's up for a vote. I come from Oxford, Massachusetts, where there is a town manager, and the selectmen's pay is like $1,000 a year per selectman. They don't have a, they have a selectman and whoever's the chairman of the board gets $1,000. Not 50,000, not 40,000, not 30,000, none of that. So I'm not I'm not following. I just come here to find out if that's still on the table, and if it is, how is it going to work? That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just need to clarify that this is citizens' comments. So people are free to share their comments about what their views are on any aspect of any business that we're going to cover, or even business that we're not going to cover, because citizens are entitled to do that. But even the gentleman who came out to Thompson a couple of years ago representing the Freedom of Information said when citizens' comments on the agenda occur, you let people give their comments, but the board should not get into a back and forth. He even recommended that. And so when we get into our business this evening, I imagine that topic will be covered. But it's important not to get into a back and forth during citizens' comments. Any other citizens' comments in the room here this evening? If you could share your name and address, please.
Ray Williams, Porter Plain Road, Thompson.
Thank you.
I'm going to speak on the administrator too. $125,000 added to our budget is a lot of money for something that our selectmen, our selectmen should be our administrator. And I do not believe that we should be spending that kind of money on on that in our budget.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from anyone here in the room? Go ahead, and if you could share your name and address, please.
My name is Peter Bryan. I live at 108 Fabian Road. My personal opinion is, I don't like the idea of a town administrator. Yeah, I grew up in the city of Worcester. As long as he could, our city manager, that's who he was, kept so many selectmen happy, he kept his job. It didn't matter. I prefer, if you want to change what we're doing, go to a mayor. Let us bring him in. Let us vote him in. He stays for 4 years. If we don't like him, we get rid of him in 4. That's the better way to do it. Why should somebody be picking who's going to run our town? Let the town people do the picking. Let us do the vote. I mean, I wasn't happy when the budgets got combined because they did it on Zoom and I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 people showed up at a meeting. Zoom is the worst thing that ever happened to this town. Really. I remember going to the library because they were going to do the cracked windows or whatever. And you could report your people and everything else. And you know what? It was standing room only. The people didn't want it. We need to go back to letting people know that there's going to be meetings, there's going to be heard, and let the people speak and let the people be heard. Don't go doing what you think of doing. Just let the people do it. I understand you guys got voted in and everything else, but if you want a town administrator, put it to the people. Let them vote, whether they vote for a town administrator or vote for a town mayor. I think they'll go with the mayor rather than the town administrator. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from people here in the room? Go ahead. If you could state your name and address, please.
Suzanne Witkowski, Clarence Drive. I do want to thank you all because I know it takes a lot of time and effort away from your families, and there's a lot of work involved to doing these budgets from someone who has sat on that board. And I know it's not funny to stand here and to sit there and have people point their fingers. And I know every cut is not an easy cut to make. I want to first address the ACO position and the cut that was made at the last meeting. The ACO, as I said last meeting, is very near and dear to my heart, and I think that she does an amazing job. I would ask that you either restore some of the funding that was cut from that budget, possibly bring her to 40,000. But if that's not an option, if that's something that you're not considering, I do want to make you aware that this is her only job. She had to give up another job to be able to cover this town 24/7, because that's what she does. At 36,000, it is not enough for her to be able to make her bills and do what she needs to do at home. And she would probably end up having to give up this position. I would like to ask if you could possibly put 4,000 aside in a new line item for overtime. And on weeks that she does work over 32 hours, with the oversight of the first selectman, that she be allowed to put in for overtime. I think that's fair for her to be able to, on weeks that she has a lot going on and she works over the 32 hours, which we know she does, that at least she could help offset her income somehow. That is one thing, just a suggestion. The other thing is a town administrator, as we've talked about, or I've said, it's not a new thing, but just for clarification, the reason the salary was left at 50,000 is because there's a process in hiring a town administrator. It doesn't happen overnight. Once the budget is approved, there will be, there's a learning curve. There are several new positions, including the financial director's position in this town hall, that need oversight for the full next year. Obviously, it would not remain at 50,000. That would probably be up to the Board of Finance as to how they would like to pare it down in the following year. There's been some combination and some combining of services and working with the school and tying our budgets together. And that is something that the town administrator is kind of that final piece in having everything put together and having that oversight of these changes and how the budget moves forward and how the town of Thompson moves forward. So I would appreciate it if you considered that when you are talking about making cuts tonight. And should you decide to make any cuts tonight, please explain to us why you want to make those cuts. I do want to just, my last thing is to please be responsible with the Board of Education budget. Those are our kids. They are our future Board of Finance members. They're our future selectmen, finance directors. They are the future of Thompson. Giving them a quality education and allowing them to just have the basics is vital. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from people here in the room? Name and address, please.
308 East Thompson Road. It's interesting to consider that bringing in the administrator. Essentially, one aspect I haven't brought up before, what would create the centralization of power. I'm seeing more of a centralization of power in the town, and more moving away from elected positions. I think that's something we should be very cautious. And he's thinking about the town administrative position, which would be quite a departure from the institution of town government. And sense it would be a significant departure. It sounds if that were to be seriously considered, it should go before the town's legislative body, which is those registered voters and vote. And that's a very significant decision. Truly, prior to going to a referendum to vote on something like that, there should be a full disclosure as to the intended responsibilities, such as what would literally be in the employment contract, what responsibilities would be shifted from the first selectman and or from the board. As I'm thinking about this, what struck me is that the administrator, we already have numerous administrators. In fact, according to the state of Connecticut Board of Finance, is one of the main administrative bodies of administrative finance. In addition to that, we have all of the offices of town clerk. We have the tax collector. We have the director of finance. We have a building inspector. We have the CEO. We have the foreman of the garage. We have the town's operations and business. So we're going to add a layer of bureaucracy and somehow consolidate them and add a significant burden to salary, which we don't refer to salary. But I really got to thinking, so we have these people who in traditional form, they administer these offices. Some of them are elected, some of them are appointed, some of them are hired staff. So, not to mention, we have quite a conflict of issues. And I think that in the long run, we probably see over the course of years an increase in so I would be very wary of that. Now, the Eastern Connecticut, that is something that really concerns me because I think it's correct to do this. And the other thing is that a member of the board of Eastern Connecticut is employee. along with the fact that other board members have received money from the town for professional services. So all of this, I think, should cause people to be thinking about what would essentially be doing is giving a portion of their venture capital. Or they don't necessarily, they can, they have the option of acquiring property, or you can just work with towns. Mandates is they can acquire property. But also that funding will go towards their operations and paying compensation of the people. So essentially, you're giving them operating. And given that there is a lot of tie-ups already, nothing to really worry about. And there are a number of other involved with that. And there's just enough information available even on the website. Which, another thing too, I recall the last meeting, there was mention of letting some of the departments just have their money and trust them. Let them spend it. That sounds all well and good, but what I like to see, I think, it's very important. And we have millions of dollars in the public money. And government is meant to be deliberative. It's meant to do things. And I think it's far more safer to maintain those checks and balances. Regarding the school budget, all I have to say is I feel that I'm seeing the number of people that the offer to raise the existing budget by $500,000 is pretty significant. I haven't heard anything about offsets. If there are new costs or new things to be added to the projects, then I don't know. I haven't know what the offsets. So again, remember, you already have a full suite of talent.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from anyone here in the room? From someone here in the room? Any citizens' comments from people who are participating on Zoom? Looks like Rebecca Aldrich has her hand raised. You can unmute her. And Rebecca, could you please, for the record, state your name and address?
Yes, it's Rebecca Aldrich, 93 Quitabog Road.
Hold on, feedback. Well, hold on. Can we figure out? Rebecca, do you have more than one device on that's?
Yeah, we did. It's turned down now. Is that
Okay,
better?
great. Go ahead. Yes, thank you, Rebecca.
Yes, on the topic of a town administrator, I'm just wondering if you have a paid first selectman who works full-time, and I believe she also has an administrative assistant or part-time help. Is that not the case?
Hold on, Rebecca, I just want to clarify, this is citizens' comments. And even the Freedom of Information Officer came out to Thompson a couple of years ago, recommended that boards and commissions not get involved in back and forth during citizens' comments. So if you have comments that you want to share with the Board of Finance, that's fine. Views on whatever matters are important to you, go ahead and share them. But
Okay.
yeah,
Understood. So I guess my comment is if you've already have a full-time employee, there's no need for a town administrator. If that position's overwhelmed, maybe a part-time help would be more practical. But if you have selectmen and they're paid a full-time salary, then basically they are the town administrator. So having a town administrator then becomes kind of redundant. And that was just my comment on that. And also, for someone who goes over 32 hours, that's not overtime. If they're working 40 hours and they go over 40 hours, if they're at 37 hours and there's a contract agreement, then that would be overtime. But to pay somebody overtime to go over 32 hours, that's just not overtime. That's just standard work. As far as cutting the school budget or consolidating into the regional school, I just feel like you need to prioritize the education of your children. You're talking about creating expensive positions, and at the same time, you're talking about making cuts to the school budget. And I just feel like the future is education and educating these young people. So I think that should be your priority in your budgets. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like Valerie Clark has a hand raised.
Valerie Clark, 105 Ulm Road. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Valerie, go ahead.
So two things. The first being that the last person who was speaking at the microphone, we could not hear on the Zoom call a single thing that person was saying. There are many comments in the chat asking you to rectify it. I didn't notice that anyone interrupted and tried to fix the technical problem. If you could please make sure that everyone can hear the speakers. I know you're dealing with new technology. It seems to be very expensive and very ineffective technology this time around. So please take care of that problem. The other person spoke, whoever it was, spoke for several minutes. We heard nothing but garbled speech. In addition to that, I am going to echo everyone else's comment about the town administrator. This is an expensive proposal, and the town will function just fine without spending $125,000 unnecessarily. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from people who are connected on Zoom? Any other citizens' comments from people who are here in the room with us? And it looks like someone on Zoom, Dave and Gail Brooks, wants to share comments.
Yes, I just want to reiterate what I said at the last meeting.
For the
I
record,
feel
wait,
that-
for the record, hold on, for the record. can you
Gail
state your
Brooks.
name and address?
34 Oakwood Drive in Thompson.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to stop talking. You go ahead and state your name and address so it's clear. I'll stop.
Gail Brooks, 34 Oakwood Drive in Thompson, Connecticut.
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate what I said at the last meeting about the position of the ACO. I know for a fact that Janice works more than these set hours because I have called her at all hours and she has been there and responded without hesitation. For the 2 years that Mary was not well and we were depending on NECOG, I got no response from them. I spent 3 days on my porch doing a bark log. I still got no action. As soon as Janice came in, the problem was solved within a couple of months. I know that she's effective. She's the most effective animal control officer that we've had in 20 years that I've lived here. I have never seen anybody work as hard as she does and at so much effectiveness. I just, we need some control in this town. We need a service. That's a service that we really need. The people of this town need it for their protection, for their lost animals, for so many reasons. I think it would be a huge loss to let her go. She's really an amazing ACO, the best I've seen. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from people on Zoom? Any other citizens' comments from people who are in the room? Go ahead, if you can share your name and address, please.
Joy Harmon,
346 Brookyard Road.
Can you speak into the microphone? You can raise the microphone. I just want to be conscious of,
Joy Harmon,
can you step closer? Closer. Because you see, the way these microphones are, it doesn't make much sound at all when I'm here, but as soon as I get close like this, in the whole room, you can
Okay.
hear it. There you go.
Joy Harmon, 346 Brookyard Road.
Thank you, Joy.
North Riverdale. Now, if Janice leaves and we don't hire an administrator, who would be responsible for that? The selectmen? So in other words, the selectman would be, besides her job, she would be carrying on 2 or 3 more jobs? And what is NECHOG being hired for if Janice leaves? Would it be the same that you're offering Janice? Or is it going to be more at NECHOG? And as far as the school goes, I had adopted a child and I had a very difficult time with the Board of Education and Special Education for a child who came sight unseen to us as his adopted parents with getting special services for him to where we had no choice with your school psychologist and the special education to fight them, to fight in the court system for him to be educated somewhere else. If the school is going to ask for all of these extra help, you have to have administrators standing and helping parents who have and know their problems at home and in the education aspect. You don't have a psychologist saying, well, we're going to build a room just for him. Well, that's exactly what they did to my child because it cost him and it cost the school in the town of Thompson $300,000 that year, and not only 1 year, 5 years to educate him. Because your school administrators would not follow an IEP. The school and the teachers were behind us. But when it came to special education, where now you can videotape these meetings, but before, you're talking 20 years ago, you couldn't. You had to go by what they wanted on the IEP, which was very difficult as an adopted parent. Besides that, I had 2 children who graduated in the years of 96 and 98 out of Thompson. They're very well educated. They're very well into their own businesses and whatnot. But when you have a special education child, you would like to have somebody stand behind you instead of saying, it's 2:30, time to go home. Get him on the bus, transport him home, and then you get a phone call. He wasn't behaving on the school bus, so you're gonna have to transport him by yourself. That's not, I went through it. And I just think that he is a grown man having a fulfilled life. But to adopt a child at 7 years old, sight unseen, in a special education aspect, and having nobody to back you but a judge in Willimantic, that's something that Thompson really has to look at and stuff. And I really believe that Thompson really needs this backing with an education system. And these parents have been fighting for years to get something that Thompson can give these children. And I, as a voter and a senior citizen, I would vote for the aspect of the education aspect for Thompson. But for an administrator for that amount of money, we have Amy. We voted Amy. Why are we hiring at 120,000 or whatever for an administrator? Now, if Janice leaves or no administrator, you're putting more on Amy. So what is Amy going to do? Clock in at 8 o'clock, clock in at 5, and And everything just goes underneath the table and everything to the next election. Then they come and shake your hand at your door. Vote for me. I promise I'll fix your driveway. I promise I'll get that done. I lived in Thompson since 1980. Nothing's ever been done. I'm still fighting. I'm still trying to, excuse me. It's like peeing in the round room, trying to find a corner. And it's like the same stuff, 4 years, 2 years, 4 years, 2 years. And it better change. There's really, how many students do we have as seniors to graduate? Our teachers are working their butts off to get these children to an education. And we can't even support them. We try to buy supplies for these teachers so they can have something for their children. And we're fighting a budget over an administrator, over pennies. We have citizens in this town who really are proud to be a citizen of Thompson, but when you have people who are constantly, see you later, you know, you're only a peon. Yeah, I may be a peon, but I'm still a taxpayer. This is what we are all fighting for. Senior citizens, senior citizens, senior citizens. You know, come on. You know, this is going to change.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from people here in the room? For the record, could you state your name and address, please?
Jason St. Ange, 139 Riverside Drive. Regardless of how this board decides to vote on town administrator, that's completely up to you. I do want to point out that what was said earlier, another job for Amy to do if the animal control officer is cut from the budget, she decides to move on. Yes, we do help out. There's been times where we've gone to the dog pound and done things when Janice can't be there. I've wrangled dogs. I've gone out and moved skunks from the road that were half alive and done things like that for Jan. We've cleaned this town hall when the maintenance guy isn't here. We go around to every single office and we clean up around here. Today and yesterday, we worked with 3 families that were displaced from their home because they had their home condemned. So I was making meals and delivering them to them today. So these are just a couple of things. And I was shopping this afternoon, buying clothing for them because all of their clothes is ruined. And delivered that to where they are now at the hotel, local hotel. These people have nothing right now. So this is some of the things that my wife does. Another person in the town to do that job, sure, it's big cost, $125,000, or maybe a little less. We don't really know the exact cost, but if you decide not to do that, then there is no reason to cut the animal control officer's salary. If you take $125,000 out of the budget, Jan should be getting paid exactly what she should be getting paid. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments from people here in the room? I mean, typically we have one person gets comments just for the sake of. Any other citizens' comments from people on Zoom? Okay, and nobody else here in the room? Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you. So new business request from the Board of Education dated March 29, 2022, transfer of funds not spent in FY 21 to non-lapsing account not to exceed 189,805, and this has been pending since March 29th. It felt like we had made quite a bit of progress at the last meeting, and it occurred to me that, I don't know, like considering that it's almost 8 o'clock, maybe it might take more than this meeting to get the budget done. I put it on here because it seemed like we were making pretty good progress and that we might be able to get the budget done tonight. And so if we can take care of this too, then we would be able to take care of everything for now.
Are you suggesting that we put it off to? No, I'll make a motion that we approve the transfer of funds not spent in fiscal year 20 from last year, Board of Education account, not to exceed 189,805.
So there's a motion to approve this request from the Board of Education dated March 29, 2022, which is transfer of funds not spent in FY 21 to the non-lapsing account not to exceed 189,805. So Steve has the motion. There's, I'm sorry, you have, Steve has a second. Dave has the motion. Steve has a second. Any discussion on this motion? Any discussion?
My understanding is, this is not to offset sort of the normal operating expenses. This is only for limited purposes such as special ed issues.
Hey, guys, you need to speak towards the microphones, please. Sorry.
Thank you for the reminder. This is basically for capital projects and special ed, so it's not the normal operating expenses of the school would be covered by this amount of funding.
Yeah, it says in this letter dated March 29, as you may recall, the non-lapsing account was established to set aside unspent funds to cover capital expenditures or unforeseen special education costs. Funds transferred from this account shall not exceed 1% of the amount appropriated to the Board of Education in the fiscal year. And so the Board of Education budget for FY 21 was $18,980,513. So 1% of that is $189,805, which is the amount being requested. Any other discussion on this? Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go around the table and I'll start to my left. Rob, Word, how do you vote?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Rob, man. And I'll vote yes. This one carries 6-0. So we'll move on to budget workshop. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, that's it. Adjustments.
Make sure we speak into the microphone.
Dave and I were on the same page. This was coming from, I believe Bill sent it out, our finance director. So Aaron, I thought it would be appropriate to take the $81,714, which is the addition of the interest on bonds for the oil spill and the bond retirement on oil spill that we have put in the budget that we don't need now in the budget. There was a full explanation. We need to go into that, but the motion would be to remove $81,714 from those two objects from the budget.
Would you state the difference, 7289 from interest?
Yeah, that's
and
correct.
74,425 from
That-
retirement.
that- That's correct, Dave. Thank you. That would be the breakdown of the $81,714.
I will second the motion.
All right, hold on. So does that mean that you made that in the form of a motion?
I did, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, okay. And so can you clarify what exactly that motion is?
The motion is to add, to remove $7,289 from object 522460, interest on bonds, oil spill, and remove $74,425 from object 522465, which is the bond retirement for the oil spill,
Great,
for
thank
a
you.
total of $81,714.
Thank you. And so Rob Word has the motion and Dave, you've already seconded, and you're good with that, the verbiage that he just shared. Any discussion on this motion? Any discussion on this motion? Okay, we'll go around. Rob Word, how do you vote?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Rob Mann?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. This one carries 6-0. Could we do a small favor to the Board of Finance? Now that we've made those adjustments, can we take a look at the dashboard, if you will, to see where we are? Take your time.
Can we carry on, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
while she's pulling that up?
Sure.
I had another suggestion, looking back at the adjustments that we made to the Director of Finance position on the town side. We moved that to an even $75,000 at our last meeting. I would think it would be appropriate to do the same on the Board of Ed side, because they have a line item for the same position that's overstated. Again, I understand that we're not in the business of, we're not to be in the business of directing line items. So I'll make the motion in the form of an overall reduction. But to keep true to my viewpoint that, and others have expressed, that I think if we're going to recommend cuts, we should have a descriptor behind it, a rationale, or maybe some reason why we feel that way. We don't all need to agree with that, but I think it's good to understand and know people's point of view on it. So I would suggest, or I would make a motion that we remove $21,708 from the Board of Ed budget, which is exactly the difference between the finance director's salary line and $75,000. So the motion is to remove $21,708 from the Board of Ed budget.
So there's a motion on the table to remove $21,708 from the Board of Education budget. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
So Rob Word has the motion and Steve has the second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Okay, we'll go around the table. Rob Word, how do you vote?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Dave? Larry? Rob Mann?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. This one carries 6-0.
Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to talk about a few more, or if there's other members that have things on their mind, I'm also.
Sure.
I'm also.
I just want to make sure that the dashboard keepers know what the amount of money is that we just moved.
Okay, before the 20, did we move the 22? Because I was busy doing the calculation.
21,708, yes.
21,007.
Oh, eight.
Do you want it? Do you want, because currently after the first motion, we were at 25.58 for the mill rate. I can make the other adjustment if you'd like to see that.
What I'm hoping to find out is what's the proposed mill rate increase?
0.63,
So does-
2.53.
I just want to make sure.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I want, so what does 0.63 include? Does it include the 81,714?
Correct. It doesn't include the last motion.
Great. You want to give them a chance to put that 21,708 in there?
Sure.
What else do you want to cover?
I wanted to cover two other items. One is on the Buckley Hill Bridge engineering.
Yep.
There was discussion about that leading to the engineering leading to the work, and the work being potentially under a 50% grant that would refund the difference. My question to Amy is there an opportunity for not only the work when we get to that phase to be returned on a 50% grant? Is there an opportunity for the engineering to be covered under such a grant of that type?
Yes, 50% of the engineering cost would be reimbursed. So it is a payout and then get reimbursement. Spoke with Steve from WMC today, just in regards to what the likelihood, he said it's highly likely that we're going to get the funding from the state, but again, nothing's a guarantee. So.
And if it isn't, if it's highly likely and it happens, then it happens. If it's highly likely and it doesn't happen, then would we have an opportunity to move that second half? I'm presuming we would bond the several $1 million project. If in the unlikely chance that it doesn't happen, sounds like it's more in favor of it happening, meaning the 50% for the engineering would come back, but it's not guaranteed. If it didn't happen, could we roll that portion into the bond for the full project?
Well, we know that the entire project is over $3 million. So therefore, yes, it is possible to have the engineering in the bonding.
And that work and that bonding would come in 23, or it would be, I don't know how long the engineering, and I don't do bridges, so what's the time frame on that?
Well, I don't think it'll happen in this construction season, so hopefully in 2024.
Thank you. I would make a motion that we reduce that line item in the capital in half. It's not to not do the project, but it's to recognize that there's a high likelihood that we would get that 50% returned to us. With a plan that if it didn't, then we would have to look at finding the funding either in next year or putting it into the overall bridge build project. So in short, the motion is to reduce the line item in the capital for the Buckley Hill Bridge engineering by $113,550.
So there's a motion to remove $113,550. Is that correct? But I'm
That's
reading-
correct.
Okay, so there's a motion to remove $113,550 from the line item called Buckley Hill Bridges, which is actually Buckley Hill Bridges Engineering. That's the motion that Rob Words just made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Steve's got the second. Any discussion on this motion?
It's a great find. That's a great find.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go around the table. Rob Words, how do you vote?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Dave? Larry? Yes.
Yes.
Rob Mann, yes. I'll vote yes. That this one carries 6-0. And that was in the amount of $113,550.
I have more, but in fairness to the other members and to Dave, I will hold on my last comment.
I'd like to make a motion if I might. I'd like to make a motion to restore the $8,000 to the animal control officer line.
So there's a motion on the table to restore $8,000 to the animal control officer compensation line, right? That's the
Yes.
salary line,
510028.
510028. And that was to add $8,000 to that line item. There's a motion,
That's correct.
motion on the table for that. Is there a second? Is there a second? Any second to that motion? Okay, if a motion doesn't have a second, then it dies for lack of a second. So I think that motion just officially died for lack of a second. Go ahead, Dave.
I'd like to make a motion that we reduce or remove $125,000 line item town administrator.
So there's a motion on the table to reduce from the town administrator line item, $125,000. Is that correct? So Dave just made that motion. Does somebody want to second that motion?
Rob Man, I'll second that.
So Dave has the motion and Rob Mann has the second. Again, this is to remove $125,000 from the town administrator line item. That line item number is, that's 510001. Any discussion on that motion?
I have a few comments to make on that motion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. Prior to that motion being made, I was of the mindset today to ask the board, my fellow board members, to discuss this topic before we made a motion. But it's too late for that because a motion's been made. And the topic that I wanted to discuss was actually quite in line with what many people have brought up this evening, which was allowing the voters, the taxpayers, to vote on that as a line item at referendum. The same referendum that they would vote on the budget. We would add a question to after the budget, we would add a question around the addition of a town administrator. Why do I say that? Well, I think that it's a big decision. It's a big shift for the town. Clearly, it was recommended by the Board of Selectmen, so we know where they sit on it. It leaves us as 6 people to make a very large decision that, quite frankly, we probably all have a point of view on, including myself. But there are a lot of people in town that have very, very differing points of view and very strong points of view. So I feel like while we're voted and we're elected officials, this is a big decision and one that I personally, even with my own viewpoint, and even if it were to pass under my viewpoint, I feel uncomfortable doing that. I think it's something that should go to a town vote. And part of what I was going to mention too was I was hopeful that the 113,550 coming out for the bridges would help create a little pathway for the 125. But here's how I would view it. If it went to vote and we had it in the budget and the budget passed, but that question got denied, when we meet after that vote, we can re-rack the mill rate down, the equivalent of the 125,000. We don't need to go back through to another vote. If that gets accepted, it's in the budget, we move forward, accepted by the people. If that gets turned down, then we sit together in a group for 5 minutes. Bill will help us rack down the 125, reset the mill rate, and that's the mill rate we voted. So I think there's a fairly simple process as another option. Sorry for taking so much time, Dave. That's important to me.
No, it's important, but I see, I could be wrong, but I see no reason why you couldn't amend the motion to the fact that to send this to a referendum question for a town administrator at a cost of 125,000 to be included in the 2022-23.
I could go either way. If the chairman allows, we could amend it, or if you all want to rescind it and make another motion, or if others want to voice their opinion on it
I
prior.
have no objection for it going to referendum. I'm just trying to-
You and I don't, I guess, I'm wondering how others feel on it.
I'm just saying,
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you, Dave.
It's an important decision and the people should have to say it.
Go-
I
go
seconded
ahead,
the
Roland.
motion. I seconded the motion, so I agree with him. I have no problem with it also going to referendum. I think the people should have a voice in it. I think one of my big concerns with it, I'll say my personal, is that I feel it adds a layer to the government. In one way, I think we have a 10-year town plan of conservation and development, which is supposed to lead our town in the direction that we want to go. So I feel that, I know selectmen change every 2 years, but that plan is what's supposed to lead the town in the direction that it wants to go. That's why that plan exists. Those are just my personal opinions. And I think that if we get a town administrator at any point, I think also it changes we have a town meeting form of government in the town of Thompson. And I think that that's kind of a direction of going into being a charter town and getting away from being a town meeting form of government, which is one of the things that I personally love about the town of Thompson, is that if a group of residents want to bring something up or change something, they have the power to do that. So that's just, you wanted me to speak about how I feel about things. That's just my personal opinion.
Thank you for that.
Anyone else?
No, I think it's a great idea to put it to the voters.
Either way, right. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Are you saying it's going to stay in here? For the right amount, but then have another for that amount, but the amount that we're talking about is going to stay for the voting in here.
That's correct. So the budget would have to be passed and the question would have to be passed for it to remain.
But the amount has to be in the question because
I
otherwise
agree
we
with
would
that.
not have the right at that point
I agree with that, Dave. Has to
add
be
the
clear.
budget. The people are voting on the expenditures of the town of Thompson.
Go ahead, Robin.
Okay, also, I just want to make sure, we need to make sure that procedurally, we're doing this the proper way. Like normally, when something goes to referendum, it goes through the Board of Selectmen. It has a process to go through. I'm not sure that this is the legal process to do that. That's my only concern.
Well, would be subject to, I guess it would be subject to complying with any laws and regulations, I think would be the way to phrase it.
That's correct.
Rob, I will withdraw my motion. Rob, you will
I will also.
withdraw. And I'm going to turn it to you, and if I find your motion is acceptable, I will second it.
So
I would
is it
ask-
okay if I weigh in?
Of course.
Mr. Chairman, yes, you can.
Thanks. I just wanted to make notes so that I don't lose track. So my view on a manager is I'm not philosophically in favor of a manager. And that shouldn't be news to anyone who's known me in the last few decades, because my view philosophically speaking, is that government is better when it's closer to the people. And I feel like a manager creates a step away from the people so that, and I know people around this table have heard me say when we're getting ready to make tough votes, and I'll say, for me, it's the post office and transfer station standard. And what I mean by that is I know when I go to the post office or I go to the church or I go to the transfer station or I go to the Thompson Community Day, every now and then someone will come up and they'll talk to me or ask me about some manner of business that passed before the Board of Finance. And I have to look them in the eye and have to explain to them why I voted a certain way. Whether the way that I voted was they find favorable or unfavorable, that's okay, because you can agree to disagree, but it's about being respectful. But it's about answering directly to the people, as opposed to answering to some other board that appointed me to this role. And so I just philosophically, I prefer that form of government that is closer to the people. That's just my view of the world. And if, you know, regardless of who shares that view with me, that's okay. But that's been my view for decades. And so then I have a question about the process. So then I have a question about or at least a point about the process of this, how we got here, right? So I feel like we got here because a dollar amount was inserted into a line item. And if the dollar amount gets approved by us and then goes out and gets approved by the people, then the dollar amount authorizes the going out and the changing of the way that we do government. And so I almost kind of feel like, for me, wouldn't it make more sense to go out and get the authorization of the people to change their form of government? And if they do approve that to change their form of government, you make it clear during that town meeting, because people are going to get up and they're going to say, well, what does this mean? What are what is the job description? What does this involve? Question, right? We know. And part of that is going to be, well, how much is it going to cost, right? I think that's also part of the discussion at a town meeting when people are deciding whether or not they want to change their form of government, as opposed to, well, we've already gotten it approved in the budget, so we got to do it now, right? And I'm not saying that anyone is necessarily going to get up and say that, but over the years that I've been involved at local boards and commissions, I have heard people say things like that. Well, we got to do it now because such and such happened, or we have to do it because we've already gotten these things done, and so we're almost there. I'm really sorry, but to me, that's not a good enough reason. We're almost there, or we got to do it now because we've already done such and such. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't work for me. When you're making a big decision about something like this, I really think that the debate about whether or not you're going to change your form of government should come first. That's just the way I feel. So then my final point, which is the process, if we were to move forward with what we're just talking about right now, where this thing were to go out to referendum and it's split out as a separate, at least my impression, and maybe it's too bad we don't have an attorney in the room, but my impression is if we were to put this budget out and then put a separate question right next to it that says $125,000, my impression is that if the $125,000 gets shot down, then that's it. The 125 doesn't live in the budget. It's been shot down.
I'm not certain.
Because years ago, I'm going to say, I think it was 2007, the Board of Finance put a separate question out about the resident state trooper, because it was getting to the point where it was very expensive because the state was cutting back and cutting back and cutting back on how much they were willing to share with us. And I believe, in fact, it might have been before the year 2000. But at some point, the Board of Finance put out a separate question about the resident state trooper. And if the people had voted down that separate question along with the budget that went out, then that would have been poof, that would have been the end of the program. So at least I just want to make sure that if what we're talking about does happen, I just want to make darn sure that we know what is, what's the if this then that, if this then that.
So if I may, Aaron.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, my intentions are different than the legal proceedings, so we want those to align. My intention in the description was exactly what you said, which is if it's voted no, then it's removed from the budget. And then the mill rate is adjusted to reflect that, and we vote on that. at that time. So we would indeed pull it out.
Because people may or may not, we don't know, but if they approve the budget, they are approving that.
But if they say no to the
They're saying
question,
no to a question, but the money's still in the budget.
well, we need to have
We are
that.
taxing the people for that money.
I think we're all agreeing on the same thing, which is we need to get that clarified. Because if that, we should get it clarified on the right technical approach, because I don't think any of us want that outcome for it to be in there. And then the townspeople vote no, and we say, too bad, it's in there. That's not the intention at all. And real quick, if I may, because some of you spoke on your viewpoint. I didn't. I just said that whether it's agreed with my viewpoint or not, I think the townspeople should have a say. My viewpoint on it is, and I want to start by acknowledging what Rob Mann said, because I agree with you, Rob, and also what Aaron said with respect to the government being close to the people. I think that we don't want Washington nor Hartford telling us what to do in our town, certainly within reason. We want to do the things that are right for us. And the smaller division you can get, the more local you can get, the better informed people are and the better decisions are made. So I think we're all aligned on that. But I also feel like it's not always a trade-off. We could still have a structure where the people's voices are heard, selectmen are elected, and town meetings happen, and referendums happen, and votes happen. We can have both if we want. And the reason why I personally would like to see both is that I think when you have a new leader coming in, a new selectman coming in, they're taking 6 months to find out what the job is all about. In many cases, these people aren't, I mean, I've never run a municipality. I've run businesses. If I came in here, I'd have a learning curve. It would take me a while. That's item one, is that quick changeover. Item two is that while we say it's not a business, and I understand it's a municipality, we're dealing with a $30 million budget. And when I see the things that Amy has done, working with Melinda and with others, they're all about cost sharing, cost savings. These are things that companies live and breathe every day. They look at where there are areas to cut a budget, not let's keep it flat from year to year. And maybe it shouldn't be flat on certain line items. And I have got a couple I want to talk about where we budgeted $40,000 and we spent 16. Why should we forward another $40,000 on a line item that's really not necessary? So I think it's a little long-winded, and I'm sorry, I'm a little passionate about it, but I feel like the right balance is to be able to have both. Have the form of government we want, but have either an administrator, someone suggested a mayor, having somebody that has some longevity and someone that has both the business sense and acumen and the municipal side. You have the people elected that are still there, so it will always be a municipality, but we bring some level of business acumen and like I mentioned, as an example, the cost savings. There's many, many other areas that ideas can be brought forward that would make our town better in terms of development, in terms of economic development. I mean, I don't want to go on all of them, but I think there's a lot of areas that people that have run businesses for years and years and years, they just bring a different mindset that I think could be beneficial to the town financially.
Thank you.
Long,
So just so everybody else, you're gonna keep it in here, right? When they go on that 1.5.
we don't have to. I'd like, before I make a motion, Larry, I'd like to talk about it as a group.
Yeah.
So that we're aligned, we'll try to be aligned. I mean, we got to vote because you may not be aligned, but I'd like to hear your viewpoint. I'm open to another option.
Like voting twice, on this, okay? You're voting, people are gonna come in, and they're voting for this. I'll bet 89%, don't know that bottom line. So if people are gonna come in and vote on this, and then they're gonna vote on the other. You just voted everything in here wrong. Okay? And the next one, which is the same, kind of confusing.
Well, it could be if it's not described properly, but it also can't be described confusingly. So if we don't leave it in, then how would we suggest adding it back if it was accepted by the people? It doesn't matter. If you don't have it in and they say, yes, you add it in. If it's in and the people say, no, you take it out, I don't know what the right mechanics are, but either way, you get to the same endpoint, which is the people decide.
I think number one, that I'd like to revisit my motion after listening to this discussion. There's no motion on the table right now.
There's no motion on the table.
We took that motion back, and Rob never made the motion.
Mr. Dave, if I may, I didn't make a motion specific. I did not, but if I could, please, I didn't because I wanted to have a discussion about it.
Okay.
So I'd ask that you kindly don't jump over me and make a motion until we all talk about it. That feels a little, I could have just jumped in and made a motion. I was trying to change the tempo of our meeting to talk
Fair enough.
about things before we
No,
make a
I
motion.
don't object. But there wasn't a motion on the table, so true.
That's correct.
Rob Mann's got some
I
comments.
know, I'm gonna come back and have a few more comments on this. Another thought is, I know we're looking at this town manager position as $125,000 in the budget. In one way, we're looking at it as a number. In another way, we're looking at it as changing our form of government or just the way the process of our town running is. I have an odd suggestion, but I'd like to see the people, like we discussed, vote on having a town manager. But it doesn't necessarily always have to be with $125,000 price tag. We could look at, how we want this done as a town. And maybe you could find somebody that's viable as a candidate, as a town manager, that could actually be a part-time town manager and take some of the relief and the stress off of a selectman. At the
I
same
don't
time.
have stress. I'm sorry.
Well, no,
I'm not stressed by this job. Thank you. That's not the reason for the town.
And I wasn't saying that. I wasn't trying to refer to that either, Amy.
to correct you.
No, it's okay. It's all fine. I didn't take it to, it wasn't a shot. It was just a way of me saying it. Taking responsibility, some of the responsibilities to direct
not what I'm looking for
administration
either.
duties is what I was trying to say.
Keep going.
So anyway,
Keep going.
I think that the discussion of what type of structure you want should be before how much money you want to spend. That's all I'm basically trying to say in a nutshell. Know what kind of structure that the people want before we put $125,000 price tag on something that they might not want at all. That's in a nutshell, that's what I'm trying
I
to say.
think the problem would be if the decision is to go ahead with this, then where does the funding for it come? So I think it ought to be, it's easier to take it back than it is to pass it and say, we don't funds for it. What do we do? Kind of thing. So my idea would be to keep it in, take it out if it fails, if the idea fails.
I have just the opposite view, and that is to take it out of the budget. That's my initial motion. If the people pass it, I think our recommendation to the Board of Selectmen would be to include it as a question on the ballot, the same ballot as the budget. And if it does pass, we have heard the people, and we have the right to appropriate those funds from surplus without any difficulty. And I think that would be the more appropriate way to deal with this, considering the viewpoints that are heard around the table. And the other thing is, if we leave it in, we're actually taxing for and raising tax money, funding that 125,000.
Not if we leave it in and they say no.
If we leave it in and they say no, it's approved in the budget.
No, we have to take,
Suggestion was
that's
you-
not,
you
we
would adjust for that.
would adjust for that. So that's not,
I'm not sure you could.
we could get opinion on that, but
I think it should be done. Except take it out, because no one's gonna know it's there. It's in there. Right. And then vote on it. So, that's the fear. You put it in here, they don't know.
I don't know if you can make it bigger.
Yeah, they may vote here, but no, not there, but then later on, I mean, it's just confusing. You're voting on something twice.
I think whether it's in there or not in there, it needs to be explained. Because you're bringing up a good argument, Larry, but that same thing could happen if it's not in there. People could say, well, maybe it is, and I'm not going to vote for this budget because it's in there. So I think it's important that whatever path we take, and I'm open to both paths, I think we need to be clear so that at least people that are reading it can follow whether it's in or not.
I would give some guidance to Rob at this point. We have a consensus as to which way we would like to go on this, if we would prefer to keep it in or to take it out. My choice is to take it out.
I will articulate my preference this way. And I guess I'm kind of revisiting what I said before, which is I feel like this is a very big question. This is about a debate about what form of government we want to have. And I guess I wish we could have that debate about what form of government we want to have. And that the cost of that would be one of the discussion items. Because that is one of the discussion items. How much? Well, how much does a town manager make in a small town in Massachusetts versus Rhode Island versus Connecticut versus somewhere else? I just feel like this is a big question. And I guess if the people of Thompson want to have a town manager, then fair enough. One guy isn't going to stand in the way of a freight train, right? But I just wish that we could have a debate about the concept of changing our form of government and then decide to pay for it, because how we're going to pay for that is part of the debate. It's not just what the person's going to do, it's how much it's going to cost. That's all.
I'm ready.
And they'll know as part of the debate, if we approve this, this is what's going to happen in terms of the structure, in terms of the responsibilities, in terms of the reporting, in terms of the cost, in terms of everything. And then everyone will know exactly what they're voting on. That's all.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
if I may speak.
Go ahead.
I value what you're saying right now and know that this town administrator position is really something that I strongly would advocate for. But I understand what you and Rob Mann have both said, Aaron. And some people are going to kill me for saying this. Maybe it is a matter of stepping back and bringing it to the people at town meeting where we can discuss it or have a working group. It pains me to say that. But yet I really value what you both said. And I don't know where the Board of Finance is going to take this. As you were discussing and you were talking about having it on the ballot, I think that's a pretty great idea. However, I think it was Mr. Gillott that said it might confuse some people and they might vote against the budget because it's in there. And they won't realize that we have the right to take it out if the second question fails. So I see that as possibly being something that would trip it up. And this budget is a really good budget. And I would hate to see it fail over this. There's time. I would really like to see a town administrator in place before I leave office. I think it'll be good for the town. But does it have to be? I hate saying it. Does it have to be this cycle? Possibly not. And that's just the voice of reason. And that's me stepping across from what I believe and being able to say, okay, there might be another way. And I hope everybody values that. So thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
I'd be ready to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Oh. Then I'll say one more thing before motions get placed on the table. I believe it was 3 years ago, we had a budget and it had two separate questions on it. And the separate questions got voted down and the budget got voted down. And that was the year when I believe it was either 4 or 5 referendums, because it was the no on the first one set in motion a certain momentum. And so I guess I would just caution a strategy of a separate question based on what I've seen happen to separate questions in the past. And I think that might be what Larry was getting at. I think what happened is people didn't understand and I think it was something perfectly legit. It was like, I think it was to appropriate money to upgrade the school so it was safer, right? So that the school roof.
It was a security gate.
Yep, the school roof, and I think there may have been a security grant too. Yep, and so those questions All right, hold on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. And so I think what people didn't realize is those questions had to be voted upon separately in order for us to comply with state regs or whatever it is that we were doing. They thought that those questions were in addition to what was already in the budget. They didn't realize that they were already there. If you voted yes on those questions, you weren't voting to spend even more money. I think they didn't understand that. And so I just caution the strategy of going to a referendum with a separate question during a budget referendum. If we have a town meeting and we discuss this, and then people I think you only need like 50 or 100 signatures to send something to referendum, and people want to send the question of, to manager or not to manager. They want to send that to referendum. Okay, fair enough. Then it's all by itself. But I know 3 years ago that adding the separate stuff that did create a tough budget year. That's all.
Does it need to be simultaneous with the voting of the budget? It could happen. I understand it was at that time, but it could be tomorrow. It could be next month. It could be in November. It doesn't necessarily have to be simultaneous.
That's right.
And
And,
I
and that's how
also-
we passed the school roof, is we just said, okay, forget it. Drop it off of the side, and then we'll come back in a couple of months. And we sent it out by itself and it passed. So I think people just didn't get it.
So there's, I guess, the argument that it would get more and maybe appropriate focus if it was living and breathing on its own.
And it wouldn't look like, some of the people would say, what is this? We didn't know. Okay. I don't know. You live here all your life. Yeah. Okay, well,
Long time.
if they-
Not as long as you thought, Larry.
Not long, right? Want to go outside? Huh? I can still do it.
I don't think so. I'm comfortable in here.
Anyway, no, you know what I'm getting? If people in the town think that you're hiding something on them that they didn't know about. That's you. So I think if we went the other way, and if we had meetings by itself, we get to know, yes. I think that's the best.
Yep.
I'm only myself. Okay?
Thank you.
I don't think
I like you, Larry. I like you.
yeah, right, yeah,
Did you want to motion or, because did you want to say something?
All I was really going to say is, basically, I agree with not bringing the question together because everybody twists it around and makes it sound like it's already in the budget, and it would be already in the budget in some ways. Well, I understand what Mr. Wertz is saying as far as, we'd adjust the mill rate, so it wouldn't be in the budget if it didn't pass. I understand that too. But at the same time, I think it would be better for it to go through the proper channels of the Board of Selectmen, like it already did in the budget technically. But to bring it to a town meeting and let it be a separate item. And I do agree with Dave with taking it out of surplus if it has to be done that way also.
Okay, thank you. The answer, Aaron, is I don't know.
Oh,
I'm
you don't know if
thinking-
you want to
I'm-
make a motion?
I'm thinking about it. Yeah. I think there's a motion to be made. I'm not clear yet exactly how to articulate that, to not spin ourselves up in a web that is hard to, if we can't figure it out, we can't, certainly expect, we gotta be able to be very clear on it. It's not clear to me right now.
And your motion is to?
Remove the town administrative line from the budget in the amount of 120.
Rob, man, I'll second that again.
So that is a motion made by Dave and seconded by Rob Mann to remove $125,000 from the town administrator line item. And the number of that line item is 51001. So the motion's been made by Dave and seconded by Rob Mann. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, are we adding to that? I didn't hear anything around the contingency to cover it if indeed it becomes accepted.
to appropriate those.
Those funds being the funds to cover the cost of an administrator, if indeed that process is followed outside of this process.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my understanding of this line item is that the change involved a $10,000 reduction to the first selectman's salary.
Yep.
If this were to pass, I'd like the board to consider reinstating that as part of the motion, if this is to be removed.
So what we can do is, right, we can do another motion after this. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll go around the table. Start with Rob Wurich.
Yes.
Steve,
No,
Dave, Larry? Yes? Rob, man?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. This one carries 5-1. I'm gonna write that down. Hold on. Okay, does someone want to make a motion to add $10,000 back into the first selectman's salary?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that then.
And just to clarify, that would, I guess that would flat fund the first selectman, right? Because the original budget of 22 was 60. Does that flat fund the?
From prior year, but it's changed from our proposed budget.
Previously 60.
Mhm.
In the current,
Reduced to 50,000 with the inclusion. of
proposals for 50, this would make it to 60.
Right, so that essentially would flat fund the first
From year
selectman.
over year, yes.
Last year it was 60.
Yes.
So I guess the reason I raised that clarification is just in case the motioner and the seconder want to remove their motion in second, so that we can decide if we believe that the first selectman actually should be greater than flat funded, because I believe everybody else is getting what, 1.75 or something like that. Not that I'm advocating for spending more money, because I'm a pretty fiscal conservative kind of guy, but I feel like fair is fair.
I would say we return it to what it was.
Okay,
The explanation that we did decreased by 10,000 because of the inclusion of town administrator.
okay.
However, we're basically providing everybody in town with a 1.75% increase, it wouldn't seem inappropriate to do this.
Not so. Speak to the second and third select. We reduced-
Most people.
So I just did a quick calculation, and if we were to take $60,000 and multiply by 0.10175, it comes to $61,000.
Might make sense to do the same for the second.
And I guess I
Not in the
understand,
motion.
and I guess I understand the difference between first selectman and the other two is because the first selectman actually does the work all day long, all week long, all year long, whereas the other selectmen, I know that they're selectmen all day long, all week long, all year long. I'm chairman of the Board of Finance all day long, all week long, all year long. But I show up at meetings and I do work, and then I go home, and then Amy runs the town. Same thing with the other two selectmen. They do work, right? And then Amy runs the town. I guess that's the difference in my mind about whether or not to give 1.75%, especially when it's $1,000.
I think if you look at the history back in 2021, it was $60,000. It was recommended by Amy, I believe, for this current year to be $50,000. And the Board of Finance increased that to 60,000, and that was approved at 60,000. Be in favor of leaving it at 60,000.
And so the motion that's on the table is $60,000. So this is the discussion about that motion. And I believe Rob Wurich had the motion and Steve had the second. So the motion and the second on the table is for $60,000. Basically, the motion was to put 10,000 back in, which is de facto 60 grand. Any other discussion on this? Any other discussion? All right, then we'll go around the table. Or are we ready to go around the table? Okay. Rob Wirch,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Dave, Larry, Rob Mann.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. This one carries 6-0.
Mr. Chairman, could we shift gears to another topic, please?
Sure.
I'd like to loop back and have a similar discussion, and I recognize this takes a long time, and we're all here burning a lot of hours. So I got a lot of value out of the last discussion. But I want to recognize it does take a lot of time. I think the topic about the animal control officer, to me, I'd like to revisit it again. Steve made a motion to pull it all the way back to 44,000. I was the one who originally made the motion to move it down to 36,000 last week. Coming up from 20,000 to 44,000, which was requested, is a very, very large increase. I'm not speaking to the validity of the work. I'm not speaking to the value of the service. Maybe it's worth 100,000. I don't know. Not speaking to that at all. What I'm speaking to is we put a budget together and said it was a part-time job and it was going to pay $20,000 and we hired somebody. It's not a part-time job. The facts have changed. But I think we need to recognize both sides of this issue. It's not just that the current person is putting in 50 hours and is being underpaid and overworked. That's not the situation. I mean, it is the situation in facts of one point of view. But what I'm trying to articulate is that we have a situation where we installed this back into the control of the town as a part-time job. And now it's not. I think we partially addressed that going to $36,000. And I felt at the time that it was a sizable leap. In other words, it's the old half a loaf and not a whole loaf, right? It was something, it was sizable, meaningful, from 20,000 to 36. The other viewpoint is that it was a big, giant $8,000 cut. So people are on all sides of it. I think after what I read this past week from people and what I heard tonight and reflecting on it a little more, I don't think that the 36 is appropriate, my viewpoint. I still think it's a little low. Steve asked for it to go to 44 and couldn't get a second. I'd suggest that we find at least kind of a halfway mark and go to 40. We found a lot in the budget. There's a lot of areas that were found, including some major size cuts tonight. I think it's worthy of $4,000 to get it to a little more comfortable place. Some people are still not going to be 100% happy. Some people aren't going to be happy at 36 or at 44. It's a little long-winded again, and I apologize. I'd like to, before I make a motion, maybe discuss this a little bit. I don't want to make a motion just for the sake of it. Do others have a similar viewpoint that maybe we should reconsider the topic?
No, I'll talk about it for a second. I was, a couple of years ago, I was entirely against our own animal control officer. I thought we should go with NECOG. I was very disappointed that when we budgeted, what was it, 2 years ago, and we spent a lot more than we budgeted. I thought that we kind of were fooled. And I almost think it was on purpose. But after hearing the citizens talk and listening to them, I think there were honest comments about this position. The fact that the person works far more hours than we're paying, I don't, that's wrong. You need to pay them for what they do. I've also learned initially, I looked at the job description. It says domestic animals, which means a lot of the things that I was hearing about wildlife and farm animals shouldn't have been covered by our animal control officer, but that's apparently wrong. Apparently our job description isn't accurate. So those aspects of the job are required to be done. So all that tells me this job is underfunded as it is. And again, going back to all the citizen comments, we've heard nothing but good things, nothing about what a great job is being done. And whether it's the current incumbent or others, it just doesn't, it isn't a part-time job.
Thank you.
right, but I don't think we don't operate that way.
So we're not here to discuss topics to the town. We have to make motions to talk about topics.
If you gentlemen want to discuss something that is of importance to this town, I want to hear what you have to say. So my personal feeling is that there's two things going on here for me, okay? And they run along on sort of parallel tracks, right? One is the programmatic choice, right? A year ago or 2 years ago, I can't remember which budget cycle it was. We made a programmatic choice to switch from NECOG to an in-house animal control management model. And we did that based on information that was presented to us. And it turns out maybe that information was the best estimate at that time. Maybe it was the most honest estimate at that time. It would be my observation that whatever that information at that time was probably not the most accurate, right? Because it feels like what's involved in doing this in-house is more than what we thought, or at least, I won't say what we thought, it was more than what we discussed, right? What we discussed was one thing, and it turns out that it's something else, okay? That's the programmatic track. That's where there's no people involved. And it's easy for boards of finance to take the cover off and dig in and pull out all the insides and put it all on the table and make decisions because there's no people involved. But as soon as there's people involved, then that's a parallel track. Because if you decide to go away from NECOG and go with an in-house management structure, then you hire someone or someone's plural, depending on how big of a structure this is going to be. And now all of a sudden there are people involved. And so you bring in an animal control officer who is apparently outstanding. I've never had a crowd of people line up to talk about me like that. I would love it if I had a long line of people who were willing to say how great I was. So apparently we've hired a fantastic person. But then there's this other parallel track where we kind of look at each other and say, well, now, wait a minute, a year ago or 2 years ago, whenever we did this, we did it based on information. And it turns out that information was not true. But now we have people involved and they're doing a great job. And so a lot of people are lining up and saying, we can't jeopardize this, right? And so for me, being a student of public administration, and my degree is a heck of a lot older than I care to admit, but I even studied about stuff like this. This happens in budgeting, right? It takes on a new life. It takes on a whole different dimension. And then the federal government or the state government or the municipal government, or whatever government we're talking about, ends up spending substantially more than what they thought they were going to spend because special interests, and I don't want anyone to hear me say special interests and be offended by that. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it's the classic definition. It's dictionary. Special interest means an interest that is not necessarily shared by everybody in the country or everybody in the state or everybody in the town. It's an interest that's shared by a smaller number of people who have a quote special interest in the retention of the person who's been hired as a result of the decision that the board made a couple of years ago based on a programmatic, informational, whatever was available at the time kind of decision. So for me, that's where the frustration comes into this equation is, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, right? I'm sorry to use an analogy that I hope nobody's offended by, but 2 years ago when we decided to do this, we let the toothpaste out of the tube. Well, it's out now, right? You can't just unhire an animal control officer who does a fantastic job that people are willing to line up and say great things about. It just doesn't really work that way, does it? So that's where I'm torn, is because if I stick to where we were when we did this, then I would be more inclined to say, well, now, wait a minute, if we're going to grow this thing, fair enough, but I'm not going to just, double this overnight. Then that's me being a bad guy, right? But then if I say, let's do it this way, right? then that's a departure. That's a philosophical departure from the decision that I made when we decided to do this in the first place, because now it's becoming more about the personality. So you'll have to forgive me for rambling, but it's just for me that it's these two parallel lines, right? And because I have a conscience, right, I'm wrangling with these two parallel tracks on this.
Sorry, but what does that mean?
Good question. I'm just, I guess I just needed to, if anybody's looking for someone to weigh in and share their thoughts, for me, I'm sort of balancing these two things, and it's making me frustrated.
I'm completely on a lot of the same page as Aaron. When we first got our animal control officer, a part-time animal control officer for the town of Thompson, got away from NECOG, the services have improved. Nobody's going to deny that, you know. But now it seems like there's demands being made of somebody needed a full-time position. Now, all of a sudden, they took a part-time position, but need a full-time position. Like, they're not going to stay unless they're made full-time. Well, I thought when the position was out there, that it was actually a part-time position. And I understand that the workloads become more, and that's why we increased the budget line item, you know, last meeting to make up for that. She's doing more work than she thought. I thought we had made up for that. And now it's, oh, if we don't get even more than that, now I might not stay, which is, I guess, a crossroad that the town has to take, whether they're going to keep this valuable person, which is kind of, I feel like my arm's being twisted at the same period of time by this person. And it's not because she's not doing a good job. It's just that budget wise, I feel it's a big jump to go from $26,000 a year. Then we went to $36,000 a year, and it's still not enough. So I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, I'm happy that we gave an increase. The person was made full-time, and unfortunately, maybe it's not enough, but I mean, I make $70,000 a year. I don't feel it's enough. I'd love 90. And that's just, and I'm not trying to be negative towards the person. It's just, that's how I feel. You know, I'd love to be able to go to my employer every year and demand more money too.
Rob, if I could jump back in, I know I already spoke, but I guess for me, I hear what you're saying, but I really try to separate the people from the position, the people from the work. I was with Steve when the budget was first put in, and we forgot a lot of things. I personally felt some responsibility for that. I mean, we blew it. It was blown. Pointing fingers at it, we're not going to change it. And we had to adjust it. We adjusted it last year. I think when we did it at 20,000 and at part-time, I think the intentions were right. That's all we really need. NECOG was giving us 5 hours a week. If we get 20, oh my God, it's 4 times better, 5 times better. So I really try to separate the person and look at it and say 2 things. One, take my lens off. Don't look at it through my viewpoint. I think I said the other day, I live out in the woods. I don't know what an ACO does, but I want to think about those handful of things that are really important to the voters, right? Like ambulances and fire trucks, right? This kind of feels like one of those to me. And I get the twisting. I feel the same way. If the money doesn't come through, we're going to lose the person. I get all that. I'm trying to park that aside and say, this is a valued service to the people. And it's worth more than what we're paying it, and it's requiring more hours than what we thought. So I hear the parallel lines like Aaron had. I think if I look at it really objectively, we got to do the right thing. Like Steve said, this person's working for a very low wage when you divide the total pay by the amount of hours.
You know, Rob, I kind of sympathize with the sort of, I heard a little bit, I'm gonna quit if you don't pay me more. And set me back, or well, then go. But I think you got to get over that and sort of look at it a little more objectively. And I felt that way very strongly. Oh, wow, you can't say that.
Yeah, I look at it that way, but at the same time, I look at the value. I know the value. There is no denial on the value of the animal control officer. I was never going in that direction. I just feel that it was a part-time position. We've made it a full-time position now. She gets benefits. And those were the things that sounded like they were the most important things that she needed to have to continue. And then now it's still going. So I don't really know.
Here's what I'll do. I'll make a motion that we increase this salary line by $2,000. Why am I picking $2,000? Because I raised, let's give another $1,000 to the first selectman, and this board said, no, just do flat 60. So I'll make a motion that we appropriate. Basically, the math that I'm doing is an additional $1,000 for the animal control officer, plus the $1,000 that I was willing to give to the first selectman. I'll send those both to the animal control officer. So that's my math. So I'll make a motion that we increase the animal control officer's salary line item by $2,000. Somebody want to second that?
I'll second it.
So there's a motion on the table and been seconded to increase this line item. This is 510028. So that instead of $36,000, it'll be $38,000. That's the motion. Any discussion on that motion?
I'd rather it be more, but it's in the right direction. I'm sorry, I'd rather it be more, but it's in my mind, at least the right direction.
Anything else?
I would just add that it's a year. And if the values continues and the people continue, we got to look at it from 20 to 38, not from 44 to 38. We can always move it up again next year. And I think it's still a very meaningful. It's an $18,000 adjustment. I think we're taking someone that maybe was had a pretty low hourly rate given the amount of time, but I understand what you mean, Dave.
Anything else? Any other discussion? We'll go around the table. Rob Rich?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Larry? Rob Mann?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. This one carries 6-0. Go ahead, Dave.
Based on the fact that we have transferred 189,805,000 to the non-lapsing account of the Board of Education for emergency expenses, which include repairs, capital items, and special ed. And in addition to Mr. Wurge's reduction of their budget of $21,708, I would like to move that we reduce the Board of Education budget by $178,292.
So there's a motion on the table to reduce the education budget by the amount of
$178,292.
178,292.
That's based on Rob's motion, I get that number, and also the transfer that we made earlier this evening to the non-lapsing account.
So there's a motion on the table to reduce the education budget by the amount of $178,292. That's the motion on the table. Somebody want to second that? Somebody want to second that?
Rob Mann, I'll second that.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. This would reduce the education budget by 178,292. Discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The money, the 189,000 that we approved to go into the fund, I forget the name of the fund.
That's right. Non-lapsing account.
I'm sorry, the non-lapsing
It's fine.
account. Is that earmarked already for this year for the overage? Or is
Melinda-
that money that we carry forward?
Mr. Chair, just to let you know, Melinda's in the audience. You have questions?
She's in the audience in the room,
Yeah, she's in the virtual audience.
in the Zoom. Melinda, if you can hear us, we would enjoy.
I can. I can. Hello, everyone.
Yes.
So the amount that we asked to set aside for the non-lapsing account is primarily because we currently are running significantly over in special education costs. Right now, our bottom our bottom number, we're not running over. However, with an addition of an out of district residential tuition, we are certainly going to go over in special ed. And so we'll need to come back to you just to balance the FY22 budget. So the reason we're asking for last year's FY22 non-spent funds to be set aside was primarily because I know right now that we're running over about 700,000 over, and we still have that pending tuition that Tom brought to your attention at the beginning of the meeting. So I'm very concerned about this year balancing out. Remember, we're at 98. I think we're about 98% expended. We are looking at just a little over $100,000 right now in the black. And it's only April, and I do have that pending residential placement. So, I just think it's very imperative that we keep that in mind, or we're going to run in deficit for FY22. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda, for answering the question. So my input here is that if that money were extra and not actually earmarked for this year, then I would line up with Dave, what you're saying, because I think that we would take away but give. One would replace the other. And I feel like we'd be keeping the school whole with their request. In this case, it sounds like that's spent this year, maybe even a little bit more. So I feel like to do that would be putting a very sizable dent into, not only do we have a situation this year that needs to be corrected, we'd be creating a situation for next year if we take that amount of money out, because it's really not being replaced by anything. It's basically an elimination.
I'd also make just a comment. I think one of the reasons for this carry forward of the 1% is a little bit of, let's not incentivize the school to spend every penny that's budgeted. Let's allow them to carry, if they are able to save some funds, let's allow them to carry that forward. If we now then say, well, you carried it forward, so now we're going to take it away the next year, I think we've lost, can I finish? I think you're taking away that incentive. I really think I think you've just destroyed the program, quite frankly, if you do that.
Good. Good.
I disagree. I think it is an incentive. I think the state subsidizes extreme cases in special ed. We dealt with that a few weeks ago. My original motion was to be cut 200,000. And I reduced that because of Rob's approved motion. And that's the reason coming up with the 178.
Original motion was 250. The last meeting, original motion was
Last
250.
meeting was 250. This meeting, it was going to be 200. And I reduced that amount because of Rob's motion, which was approved. So it's wasn't based on 189 initially. I looked at that as something plus for the Board of Education.
Any other discussion? So go ahead.
I don't know where we are on a roll up, but I know I did a roll up before we got here, and we've taken out more than my roll up. So can we look at that? It's not part of the discussion of the motion, but it's important as we weigh the magnitude of the motion.
You look at the 25.25, it's a 0.3 mil increase, 1.22%.
Could you do 0.3 times 155, please? Equals 155 times that cell.
Sorry, say it again.
0.3 times 155, it's about 45 or 46. Back of napkin. No, 155.
Just 155.
It's $47. The average appraised value of homes in Thompson is $155,000. I called the assessor today. That's an average. Lots of people below the average and a lot of people above the average. There's about 3,700 homes. So that doesn't include landowners. That's a much smaller value, and it doesn't include a few, about 150 commercial industrial. But that's by far the vast majority of where our revenue comes from. If we left the number the way it is not flat. It would be an increase from 24.95 to 25.30 increase. That would equate to a $47 per year adjustment on an average household. Keeping our school intact and not removing additional funds from the school, which has been hurting for several years, I could feel good about asking folks if they go to vote, if they'd be willing to pay $47 a year more,
Buck a week, not even.
less than $1 a week.
So if I can share some comments, the requested amount from the Board of Education is $19,873,192. That's the amount that was forwarded to us at the beginning of this budget season. $200,000 equals 1.00638%. $200,000 equals 1.00638% of $19,873,192. I feel like we've gone through the general government side of this budget and the capital improvement plan and whacked here and whacked there and whacked there and whacked there. I just feel like 1% is, I realize that if someone is requesting, say, $100 and they got 99, they might protest and they might say, well, I didn't get $100. But I feel like the ones who are paying the 99 might feel like that's pretty reasonable to the taxpayers to pay 99% of what was requested. I just feel like that. And I know that people have said, if you're going to say that, you need to point where it's going to come from. I hear that, but I just feel like we've done such a good job of going here and there and bang, 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 all the way through the government and the CIP. I just feel like I kind of feel good better about a budget when I feel like everybody's giving something. Everybody's giving something. Now I hear the observation of the amount of money that it would mean. And I know over my too many years of doing this, every now and then someone will justify the expense of something by saying it's a cup of coffee a day. It's just a cup of coffee a day. And I get that because everybody knows that a cup of coffee a day is not a lot of money. My thing is, it's a cup of coffee a day in addition to the mountain of cups of coffee that we already have to pay for every day. You pay a bunch of cups of coffee to the federal government. You pay a bunch of cups of coffee to the state government. You pay a bunch of cups of coffee to the municipal government. And then it's another cup of coffee on top of the pile of cups of coffee. That's why eventually, for me, I say, isn't 99 out of 100 pretty good? I mean, I think that's pretty good. So that's just for right or wrong. I don't want to walk away from this meeting tonight and have everyone say, you know, that guy, Aaron McGarry, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to look at him the same way again. I don't want that. I want to serve with you guys because we're here for a reason. We're here to do what we think is best for this town, right? But we also are here to do what we think is best for the people who are paying for all this. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us different from all the other boards and commissions, is we're the ones who are going like this. Okay? And sometimes we're going like this, trying to close our eyes to see which one feels heavier. And so for me, that's why I'm comfortable with this motion.
Well, I helped participate in doing the town budget. And the town budget, when I helped put it together, I didn't look at how much can we ask for. I did those same things, weighed what was requested, what was needed, what prior years were. So this, just like the school did, they looked at what they needed, not some dream, and our job is just to cut. Our job is to provide a responsible budget. And the school did that, and the town, I think for the most part, did as well. So given 99%, when somebody needs 100%, that's a cop out.
Any other discussion?
I was going to add that it's a good argument, the 99, but I would say it's as good as my $47. It's how you want to look at it. But I respect the argument. I guess for me, for the expectation of people in town to want a better town and not want to pay anything more is equivalent to going to work, and when it comes time for your raises, your boss gives you a 1.22% raise and you're happy with it. We all know that's not the case. We would expect a 3 or 4 or 5% raise
Or zero.
in the case of the selectmen. But you gave up $10,000, so I know you're doing okay.
I was going to give you a grand.
I know, thank
And
you.
I wanted to give you more. My point being is that I think it's a little unrealistic to expect to continue to maintain or even try to improve the services and the town and the government that we have, to do it without any adjustment, particularly given the year we're in, where the cost of many, many items like fuel and like food and like so many other items are out of control. 8.5% is the national average inflation. So this feels like it falls to me into the reasonable category. And the school has been under budgeted. And there's folks out here that have name called and have labeled me as not being true to my word. And I think it's disgraceful that they're doing that. But I am very fiscally conservative, and I believe in spending and cutting spending where it's appropriate, and not just cutting for the sake of cutting. So I'm back on, I really feel like a 1.22% to me falls into the reasonable category, and I don't see a need to go any further.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, you ready? We'll go around the table. Rob, how do you vote?
I vote no.
Steve?
Vote no.
Dave?
Yes.
Larry? Rob, man?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. So this one does not pass.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the school budget and the town budget as stated with a 25.25 mil, which would be a 0.3 mil increase.
So you're making a motion, hold on a minute. Hold on. What's the total dollar amount that's on the table now? Do we know?
Do you need the amount for the tax warrant?
Well, I think it's a good idea that if someone's
So-
going to make a motion to send this out, that they include the total dollar amount in their motion.
After revenue, or do you need it before revenue? I just,
Right. But, right. So, but I think in order for this motion, so in order for this motion, I just feel like this is the kind of motion where, but this is no longer accurate, right? Because I'm looking at this, right? But usually when we make a motion, when somebody makes a motion to just send this thing out, they say, I make a motion that we send out the proposed FY '23 budget in the amount of, I'm going to pick a number, 20,157,000, blah, 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 blah.
so you
blah.
want the total before revenues considered? So not what needs to be raised in taxation?
Right, just
that's
the
all.
amount that's being spent.
Okay, so the total budgeted expenditures are $28,547,059.
Okay,
So I want to, may I pause for a minute?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like people jumping ahead. So I wouldn't feel right to not allow Dave or anyone else that has something on other topic because it may be meaningful and we may find something that maybe would be a responsible cut. So Dave, I'm going to pause, but I want to come back to it. So please go.
Thank you, Rob. In discussing tax revenues with the tax collector this weekend, I've come up with his suggestion of $100,000 in revenue. Prior year taxes, 30,000. Motor vehicle supplement, 50,000. Interest and liens, 20,000. Increasing each of those items on the revenue page.
Is that the increase, Dave, or the new amount?
That's the increase.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure you spoke to Rainey?
Yes,
Oh, okay, all right.
yes. This has been confirmed by Rick. It's not mine.
Okay, because he was gone, so,
Yeah, he's in
Okay.
Florida. I
yeah,
know
okay. He had the numbers with
that. I
him.
called him in Florida.
Okay, cool.
Prior year taxes, 30,000. Motor vehicle supplement, 50,000. Interest in liens, 20,000. Total of 100,000. Increased revenue. That should have been.
Is that a mo- Go ahead.
That's a motion. Would someone say?
I'll second the motion, and I'm thankful that I paused.
Discussion.
What, you have the new numbers? No, I do not. Yeah. I look for it.
It's 410. So it's up here,
Oh.
Steve. Motor vehicles 240.
Oh,
No, we haven't.
No, but can you put it in so we can see what it is? No.
okay.
Put it on the Excel sheet.
No, the Excel sheets.
Interest in liens is-
So, 50.
50,000.
Bill, can we look at those same three line items for the current fiscal year? So we have some relative comparison. I think that's where Steve may have been going.
Expected.
Budget get us directionally.
Part of the reason that Rainey mentioned this is that, first of all, the motor vehicle supplement is determined by the state. The value that you pay taxes on the vehicle, the state determines that. And if you look at the cost of vehicles, whether it be used or new, there's a significant increase, over 30% this year. He's anticipating additional.
Revaluation of those.
But the state doesn't agree. They just tell the assessor.
The new blue books.
Prior year taxes, that's based on his auction, which is coming up in May, I believe. 60-day window for payment. He said most of the payments come in at the end of the 60 days, which will be in the new fiscal year. Interest and liens related to those payments coming in.
Prior year.
It's 440 is prior years. Is it 290, Bill? 290.
Yep.
And interest on these? Interest in these, two. Yeah, other than prior year, the other two are actually lower than the current year.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other comments?
Was that put on the table as a motion yet? I got the motion.
And I had seconded.
You would second it. Thank you for refreshing my memory.
I did the calculation for you. 25.12 representing 0.69%.
Any other discussion on this?
Have a cup of coffee.
Might even be more. So, just so that we, just for Dottie's sake and for recording the minutes accurately, Dave, can you give me those numbers or state them? No, what you got from Rini? You can just, can you state clearly into the microphone what Rini said to you?
Prior year taxes, an increase of $30,000. Motor vehicle supplement, an increase of $50,000. Interest in liens, an increase of $20,000 for a total of $100,000 increase.
On the revenue
Tax
side.
revenue side.
And that was your motion and Rob Ward seconded it. So any other discussion on this?
Sounds like a good idea.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll go around the table. Rob Ward,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Larry? Rob
Yes.
Mann? I'll vote yes. This carries 6-0. So here's something I'm willing to do before it gets away from us. We took $21,708 away from the Board of Ed budget to account for the change in the school business manager salary. If we reduce by an additional $78,292, that would be a total reduction of $100,000, which would be 1/2 of 1%, 1/2 of 1%. So coming back to the analogy, the quest is 100, the taxpayers are giving 99.5 if we were to do that. So I'm going to make a motion. Great. I'm going to make a motion that we reduce the education budget by $78,292. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion?
Could you tell me what in the school budget you want to cut?
Right. So thank you. And like I said, we've gone through the town side, we've gone through the capital improvement plan, we've whacked here, we've whacked there. And I feel a lot more comfortable when I feel like everybody's got buy-in. So I just feel more comfortable if everybody gives a little something. In all the years that I've been on the Board of Finance, every year, everybody gives a little something. And so that's where my comfort zone is.
But when we looked at the town, we looked at specific lines and what we thought we should or shouldn't do, whether
Yep.
appropriate or not. I think the school deserves the same.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. And I know that Dave has said this before, that we can go in and we can change every single line item within the town side and the CIP, which we do. And on the education side, they can decide where it goes. And I feel like 1/2 of 1%, especially when $21,708 of that 1/2% is we already know it's coming out of the school business. So really, we're talking about $78,292 is what the Board of Ed would find somewhere in their budget. And out of a budget of almost $20 million, I just get the feeling that $78,292 can be found in a budget of almost $20 million. It's just, and I hope nobody in this room hates me for the rest of my life, but that's just the way I feel.
And I appreciate that, but when we looked at the library, for example, which is a similar situation where the library board decides how they're actually going to spend the money. And we reduced it by, I think it was $3,000. First, because we saw a couple items that seemed to merit that change. I think, again, my thought would be, where in the school is there $78,000 that disappears?
I know I'm just going to repeat the same.
Right,
thing,
we're
so,
gonna agree
yeah,
to disagree, I guess.
That's fine, yeah. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, we'll go around the table. Go ahead.
I was just waiting out, Aaron, in case someone else wanted to talk. I will not take more than a minute. Less than a minute. I'm not going to repeat everything, but I kind of feel I understand where you're going with the motion. It's more of a gesture to have everyone participate in a cut and feel a little bit of the pain. But I'm having a hard time supporting it primarily because of the stacking of the last several years and what's happened with the school. And I know the counter argument is that it's $19 million and it's the single biggest line item and it's a small little amount in over a big number of $19 million. I get that. I don't support it because I feel like we're doing it for the sake of getting to that break even number. I think asking folks to pay a 0.69% fraction of a mill rate increase to keep the school healthy, keep it whole, give them what they've asked for after 4 or 5 years in a row of not giving them what they needed. I have a hard time supporting it.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, we'll go around the table. Rob Wirch,
No.
Steve,
No.
Dave,
Yes.
Larry, Rob Man.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. This one carries 4-2. Anywhere else in this budget anybody wants to go? And when you get a chance, Bill, I mean, you can let us know what the dashboard says.
Nice find.
Yeah. Well,
To 5.02.
so that's a proposed mill rate increase of 0.07. Okay. And the total spend, the total proposed spend is what, 18,923,022? No.
Well, the
28,468,767. So then here's a dumb question. Where's that, if you flip back over to that spreadsheet and it says 18, blah, 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 what is that?
That's less revenues.
Thank you. Okay, so let's flip back over to the other screen. Yep. So right now, the total proposed spend is 28,468,767.
Approve the budget as adjusted.
And if, could you read the number?
28,000.
No, 28 million,
Million.
28 million.
468,760.
So a motion has been placed on the table to basically approve and forward this budget out to town meeting and referendum in the amount of $28,468,767. That's the motion. Somebody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Rob
motion,
Mann's got the second. Okay, so Dave has the motion and Rob Mann's got the second. Any discussion on this motion? Any discussion? Okay, we'll go around table. Rob Wirch,
Yes.
Steve,
No.
Dave,
Yes.
Larry, Rob Mann.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. This one carries 5-1. The agenda does call for, yeah, where is the agenda? Here it is. So if everybody's okay with moving out of budget workshop, it would seem that our business is concluded for the night, right? Any Board of Finance member comments?
Just that we need to cancel the meeting schedule.
That's right.
Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that was posted in case we needed it. So we can just not have that meeting.
Cancel the meeting schedule.
So motion has been made to cancel tomorrow's meeting motion by Dave, second by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstained? That carries 6-0. What about Thursday's meeting? I mean, that's a regular meeting but it was just going to have things like first selectman's update, superintendent's update, finance director's update. There's no official visit.
Have we met enough?
But that's it. And that's why I put the non-lapsing account request on tonight, because I figured if we can get all this done now, then we don't really have to meet on Thursday.
Point of order would be scheduling of the meeting. Here.
Yes, yes. And I'll work with Dottie to schedule that. Absolutely. Yep, okay. So then, does somebody want to make a motion to cancel Thursday's meeting?
I'll make that.
Steve's got the
I'll
motion.
second it, Rob Wirch.
Rob Word says a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor of canceling Thursday's meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Carry 6-0. Anything else? Any Board of Finance member comments?
I have a comment.
Go ahead,
I'll
Rob.
make it quick because it's late. I appreciated everybody's open and honest debate and feedback and points of view. I have to say the last two meetings for me personally were very frustrating, not because my views weren't voted on. I just felt like we were not as cohesive as we were tonight. None of us are going to get all of our views accepted. I think we all know that. But when you think about the progress tonight, the areas that we found and discovered without really hurting the departments, finding creative ways to bring revenue in, to move costs around. And I get that the school took a hit. And they'll figure out how to manage with what they have. I'm sure they always do. But my main point of my comment was to thank you guys. I think tonight was a really hard meeting, but a really terrific meeting in that sense.
What made it difficult, Rob, was Zoom. We were all present.
Tonight.
And I think that makes it.
I'd prefer as well to be, I'm an in-person person. I think, yes, and the dialogue, the actual, the dialogue to me is valuable because I want to be able to hear and understand different points of view because that's how I change mine if I'm going to. And if we all have that view, then we got to hope that the best answers surface between the six of us, not all of my best answers, but the best answers. And I think we got to that point today.
And to your point, Rob, I agree because this kind of open dialogue doesn't come along every day. And that's because sometimes when you're in these moments where you're coming down to the end and you share what's on your mind, you're going to collect your papers and get up to walk towards the door at the end of the night, and somebody's going to be angry at you from the community because you said what you said. You know it. And so a lot of the times in these meetings, you kind of hold back from really letting out what's really driving your viewpoint, because you don't want to go to Thompson Community Day and have somebody ignore you, or you go to the transfer station and someone sees you and they turn and they go away because you think, okay, there's someone obviously I made angry and they never want to talk to me again. Okay. And so that's why there's this reluctance to just let it go. And so I think what's great about the meeting we just had is people let it go, knowing that this is meaningful to the 6 of us at this table, so we can get our work done. Because you can only get your work done when you really know what's genuinely on people's minds. That's when you can be empathetic to each other, right? And then say, look, I know you want this and I want that. How about we meet halfway? That's how democracy works. So I agree with you. I really value that kind of just open, let the other 5 know what's on your mind. And it may not be the most popular thing for other people to hear in the community. They may be angry about it, but we have to work together. And I value the 5 of you. I really do. I value, because we've got folks on here who have been doing in their line of work for many years, and maybe they're retired now, but they bring a very astute perspective to the numbers. And so I just really value the folks around this table. That's all. Thank you.
Move to adjourn to.
So, would you?
Second.
Okay, so.
Sorry.
Yeah, yep. Dave made a motion to adjourn. Rob Words seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify,
Aye.
oh, excuse me, all in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? This carries 6-0. My cell phone says it's 9:37.